Hi! Hello!
Biglaan na lang.
Hola.
Oo nga,
Hola,
biglang
hola, hola.
hello!
So, parang,
Hello! Ayan.
yan.
So, isang magandang ay! Isang
Hi,
blooper
good evening,
kagad. Isa pala.
everyone. Good
Good
Hey.
evening.
evening. Isang magandang Friday to everyone, to our BBS loves. Hello and welcome to our Friday session. And this series is actually the series. This episode is called BL and all that jazz. So first off, I'd like to say
Right.
hello to everyone who's joining us. Hello to Nolan.
Hi,
Hello.
Hi,
Nolan.
Nolan.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, and we'd also like to introduce ourselves for those of you who are joining in for the first time. So we are BBS, Bruhaha BL Squad, and we are composed. Actually, we're seven. There's seven of
Right.
us. But joining us is number one, P Lance. Hello.
Hey. Hola.
And then also joining us is P Mike.
Hello, Sawadi.
We have P Mark.
Hello.
And
Gusto ko
I am
yung
Maya with my beloved DL doggy, who's super teeny. Hello.
Hi, hi,
Hello.
hi.
And there's also another person who's actually with us tonight, but in the backstage. He
Right.
is
Our tech
doing the
person for
technicals
tonight.
for, yes, our technical person for the night. We have P Nico.
Right. So he's waving in the background, I'm sure.
Yes, and we have two more girls who are about to join us. We have Patty and Anne. So maybe for some of you have seen us in the other episodes, you may have met them, but please expect them to join us soon. So
Right.
there, and this is actually going to be different from all our other episodes.
Right.
Yun.
So
Before we used
initially,
to do the regular series review. So what's up
right.
for this week, guys? Please do a quick intro.
Yeah, so basically what's going to happen this week is we're going to be doing something different because in a way we are sort of going to be expanding, diba? So we're going to also start looking at other series, not just DLs, because as you know, everything changes and we have to change with it as well. So we're doing something a little bit different this week because we want to try out something different. So instead of reviewing a particular series, we are going to be talking about um, concerns or issues which surround or beset the BL world. Because, as you know, it's not all about rainbows and the kilig, right? I mean, there are pressing matters and there are concerns that, of course, are included in the fandom and in the BL industry. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And our format is going to be sort of like not necessarily a game at all. It's going to be sort of like random topics. The topics are pre-chosen, but the order in which they come out is going to be the surprise. So
Yes,
later
parang Miss
on,
Universe, no? Parang top
yeah,
5 Miss
I
Universe.
think it's going to be like
Diba?
it's
Or
going to be like a
parang top 4.
lottery,
Oh my gosh, parang tayo yung ano.
right? Final
Top
cut
4.
representing Tunisia joke. So just like the title
Yes,
says, we
from
represent the
our
different colors, and of
from the
course,
top 4 finalists of Miss Universe.
exactly, right? And just to let you know, of course, we will have different opinions. Our opinions might be different from yours, and that's absolutely fine because we live in a world wherein we are not all the same, right? We are all unique. We all have different opinions. We all have different tastes. And what's important here is that we share our love for BLs and we also share what our thoughts and opinions are. The goal is really to be able to have that
Yes.
conversation so that we get to know more about each other, we understand each other more, and basically we build a community of love and kinship. Tama ba,
I
guys?
love it.
Yep.
Grabe. You captured
Yes.
it very well, Miss Venezuela.
Well, thank you very much. Miss Nisha talaga. And I also appreciate that one of our viewers, Nolan, is multitasking, right? Because that's the way of the world these days. You have to be able to do multiple things at the same
So,
time. He's watching guys sa pelikula and this at the same time. Thank you very much for that,
Thank
Nolan.
you. Thank you for
Thank
spending your
you.
Thank
Friday night
you.
with us.
Ayan.
Yes,
So,
and we also welcome everyone to join in the conversation. If they have questions, please feel free to throw it. If you also want to react on the topics that we'll discuss today, please also do so. And we'd like to welcome, yay, our top 5 finalists. Kompleto na ang top 5 na Miss Universe. I
yes,
love it.
ito na, finals na.
I can't
And
believe I'm part of the top 5.
the top,
Yes.
the top 5.
Top 5.
And I'd just like to say
From
hi to
viewer
Z.
votes.
Hi Z, thank you for joining us. Appreciate
Hey.
it.
Survivor sa Jonah. Hey, hey.
Hey, join in on the conversation. Type in if you have your comments, put it there. Yeah.
Yes.
So, how do we do this? Ano ba? What's the first step?
So I think we will actually show. So if you can see here, so it's going to be a very colorful night. So because we're so proud and inspired by the rainbow, we have splatters of color on the screen. So each one of us will pick a color, and then when you pick a color, it's going to be corresponding to a pre-selected question. O, di ba? Para talagang Miss Universe. I love
Oh my
it.
God.
Yes.
Di ba? Parang, okay, pick a judge.
Exactly. And since you are the one who introduced us, would you like to pick the first color?
Okay, I would like to choose the most masculine color of all, which actually suits me very well. Color
Okay.
pink.
Hindi ba siya purple?
Yes.
I think it's purple. Joke colorblind pala.
Magenta. Let's
Alam ko nga
say
magenta.
Fuchsia. Fuchsia.
Okay,
Ay.
Pona.
Oh, no.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my gosh.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Pearl versus Flirn Plang. Am I the one who's going to answer or everyone will answer?
You should
Whoever
start, I
wants
think.
I think, yeah,
We
everyone.
should all share our thoughts. But if you want to go ahead,
Okay.
yes.
Hindi, siguro I'll just give a background na lang muna for everyone who's joining. So if you guys don't know who Plang and Pearl are, si Pearl is actually one of the leading characters in Game Boy. So Game Boy is actually one of the biggest hits in Pinoy BL.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
she is actually the best friend of one of the lead characters, which is
Gabriel.
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 Yes.
Gav and Kai.
Yeah.
Yes, and then Flirn Plang, on the other hand, is actually, can I say um, Amida. Yes,
Antagonist.
the antagonist.
The antagonist.
Correct. Dragonist, whatever. So yeah, in the series together with me, and she is actually the girlfriend of what's the name of the character?
Well, it's
Corn?
or
Corn, or the
Corn.
it's Tool's character in
yeah.
yeah, together with me. All right. So basically, hi Pono, and hi Christian. Hi. Happy Friday. Oh,
Hi, happy Friday.
Yeah.
Happy Friday.
love you too as well. All right. So basically, we're supposed to give our thoughts on the types of women that we see in DLs, and okay. Well, Nolan says not Lang. I cannot stand this girl.
I agree so well.
She can't sit with us.
Same. Totally agree with Nolan.
Okay, so Maya, did you want to say something pa?
No, I just said I want to agree. Go ahead, guys.
Okay, so I'll get started. Initial reaction when I see Fleur Blanc is really, I don't like her at all. Like, I remember from Together with Me, she was always doing something to sabotage the relationship. And she wasn't doing it sort of like in a nice way because she's a really mean girl. You know, I mean, she really went out of her way to try to destroy the relationship. And she even manipulated and used other people to get what she wanted. So in my thinking, these types of women, which are portrayed in BL series, it's not healthy, especially if they get away with it, because what the message that it sends is basically that people can be total dicks or assholes, or it can be total bitches and get away with it, right? So
Yep.
that's one of the things that I think is a fact in a lot of BLs. But what I'm seeing right now is there is sort of like a rewriting or a resurgence, or I don't know, maybe a rewriting of the female characters in
Yep.
BLs. I mean, it started with Disney, I would have to say, diba? Because in Disney movies nowadays, and especially when they redo a classic, they're making the women characters even stronger. Like for example, in case in point, in Maleficent, right? So true love is not necessarily between cisgender couples now. It can be between a godmother and a child, right? So, I mean, true love comes in many forms. So that's what I like, right? And it's now happening in BLs as well, especially in the Filipino BLs that we've seen recently.
Yep.
So for me, it's an X for Pern Pleng. She is not welcome here. We don't know her. She is out of, out of here. What about you guys?
Yeah, and like to ride on with your Disney thing because it's like what I think they did with Frozen as well. It's like you true love is within two sisters from Anna and Elsa. So
Yeah.
with that, I think even before Pearl arrived, Pearl is like the epitome for me for what a BL girl should be. Hopefully, she's a strong, powerful, independent woman, or as they call in
Right,
the world, the queen. Pero before she arrived, there was Yiwa, there was P Earth. Yiwa
right.
from Together with Me,
You want
and she was
Peter.
one badass woman as well. And there was P Earth from So to Says, who was also an independent woman.
True, very true.
But
That's
also in that
true.
scale, there's also P Dorian and the others.
You know how I feel about Tigorian.
I
Talk about
know,
her
I
last
know.
episode. Oh my
And
gosh. Yes.
and Pleng reminds me of every telenovela Doña Santibanez woman shown in
That's
every telenovela and
true.
teleseries. But I won't put her to a Doña Santibanez level because she's a different level, but she has that telenovela contravida vibes
Right,
that everyone wants to
absolutely.
hide.
So true, so true. And the thing about her is that she's very two-faced, right?
Mm.
She can be very sweet to her boyfriend, but then really nasty to, someone else. Ugh.
Yeah.
Mark, how about you?
Well, I don't want to weigh in specifically on Pearl and Plern Pleng, but I would rather, I think I would want to talk about the role of women in BLs because they all come in all shapes and sizes, all forms or characters, all personalities and everything. So whilst there are diversities, but we also have to consider kasi na in BL, while women, I don't want to say that or female characters are secondary. Pero kasi
Mhm,
in the genre of BL, it ano hindi natin maiwasan eh. We can't help it that to put them in a secondary box because it's a boys love series, a movie, or it's a boys love production. So putting them in a quite inevitable. I mean, no matter how hard give the limelight, give the spotlight to women in BLs, it's not the it's not the right genre to do it. I mean, there are genres out there to give it to women. But having said that, it's also very important, especially now, no, when we talk about women empowerment, feminism. We're in the age where we empower the then minority women and LGBT to get
mhm.
to somehow give this be in a better place to live in. Yun naman yung goal natin. That's our ultimate goal on why we do empowerment for people. Because we want to
Right,
make this world a better place to live in for all genders, for all sizes, for all religions, and for everyone.
right.
Having said that, with the rise of BLs, I think I don't want to say market share, pero yun yung that's what first popped into my mind. The market
Mm.
share of BL.
Right.
Since it has already rise in the recent years and there is a big market, especially here in the Philippines, it's productions have a very big responsibility on how to portray women.
Mhm.
Productions in the Philippines, I think some as of now, what I've seen, I haven't seen as much Pinoy BLs I think they're in a good pace. I mean, in a good
Mhm.
place in terms of representing women.
Mhm. Mhm.
In the image in the image of Pearl we've seen from Game Boys, and we all adored Pearl. I mean, not just the four of us, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yes.
but we all adored Pearl's character, being an independent woman, being an assertive woman, being someone who
Mhm.
speaks her mind, being someone
Supportive. Mhm.
who yes. So we've seen role role for a woman in a BL series, which is a breath of fresh air compared to what we've seen in the other BL series. I don't want to specify some titles, but gener- generally speaking, for Thai BLs, um, there are s- there are some titles that represent women
Mhm.
in a not so what do you call this, in a not so modern way, if I
Okay.
can say.
Right.
That's what makes us more proud of our production in the Philippines.
Right.
If we will compare the representation of women in BLs, Thai and Filipino,
Mhm.
there is a big difference if you can see in the image of Pearl. I mean, I'm hoping the other Pinoy BLs as well do not put because in BLs they always blame the women. I don't know.
Right.
There is
Absolutely.
always the
Third party.
undertone in the story.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're always a third party. They're always the reason of the destruction of the relationship. They're always the cause of the conflict. I mean, it might these things happen. I don't know in real life maybe, but
Yeah.
these are not the only things that happen. So
Exactly.
representing women in yeah, but representing women in BLs, I think I, I don't want to be the sensible critic again, but I think the Thai BL should be more should be more I do this should do it more responsibly. Especially they have
Mm,
the large percentage of the viewership is
right.
from women,
Right.
especially younger women. I mean, s- having said that, younger viewers watch your series, watch your movies, watch your production. You have this responsibility to be to be a good type of media for them. I mean,
Correct.
so that sorry, I'm heavy. No, that's a very heavy
No,
statement.
that's
Hindi, but
actually
it's actually
That's
it's
actually
valid,
actually
good.
true.
diba?
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
valid,
it's
And
true.
and
right?
it's actually using the
Especially
platform to influence behavior, the younger generation.
Yeah,
exactly.
especially when I watch other what do you call this? They're not series but variety shows in other productions. I mean, GF. Let's drop the name. There are other productions in GMMTV where I can't help.
It's
I mean,
okay.
I love their content. There are some undertones that are problematic for me personally, but I still support. I still watch them. I
Right.
just I take everything with a grain of salt. I don't take everything in.
Right.
That's why
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
some instances where female female characters are not given the same spotlight. They're not given the same airtime. They're not given the same
True.
what do you call this? They're not given the same exposure.
Mhm.
Because a part of me understands because marketing the boys love genre is technically you market the boys.
Mhm.
Diba?
Absolutely.
That's very plain and simple. That's black and white. I mean, market the boys because that's your product. But since you also introduce women or female characters, I think you should also give them a decent amount of exposure responsibly. I mean,
Yep.
give them the airtime that they are not just problematic people ruining relationships of two men. And they're not just the characters in a story where um, they they are the ones after the male characters who end up being together.
Right. Correct.
Let's paint women a better picture. I hope in the future. I mean, I
Agree.
know. Yeah, I know that I our reach does may not yet be as wide as it can go international to Thailand already, but
Mhm.
At least here in the Philippines, I think we're in a very good footing. I mean, um, with Pearl and Pearl and Pearl.
Yeah.
Pearl is the benchmark. That's basically it.
Yes, Pearl is the benchmark.
She
Yeah.
said it.
Like, how
She
can you
set the bar really high.
Yeah, and we're
yeah,
raised
like, how can you
matriarchal
ever
practically
beat
then.
her?
I
Hmm?
mean, the Philippines
Yeah.
is raised matriarchal, so it's inherent for us to
Really?
make dominant women
Yeah.
or strong women
Yeah. Just
somehow.
That's actually
yeah.
very true. Yes.
Historically, yeah, with our Babay lands, right? We should
Yes.
Right.
go we should go close to our roots, and parang let's not look at the other productions internationally like they're the benchmark, because
Hmm.
not everything in foreign is good. I mean,
Right.
they may be good, but you should also look into our local scenes that which may be better and more fitting
Hmm.
for us, because what Filipinos.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. I think what's happened is, I mean, overall, we have to give props to GMMTV and the rest of the Thai industry for
Hmm.
really pushing the BL scene or the BL genre forward, right? But now it is up to us to tell our own stories, right? Because of course, their experiences, their social milieu, their environment, their traditions and such are different from ours. And just like Capona said, right? For he mentioned, I think roles are flipped with women in BL than that of straight shows with gay and women, and that's absolutely true. And Nolan also made a good point that the BL series that we see from from Thailand, are basically written by women. And the thing is, the the roles or the characters that they portray women as is all one dimensional. Like they have a one track mind. I get my man. If I don't get my man, nobody else gets him. He's mine. Period. Right? Like, is there
Yeah.
no other thing that you want to do with your life? It's getting a man, the be all and end all of your life. Like seriously, don't you have a career? I mean, don't you want to accomplish things for yourself? So that's my problem with with a lot of the women roles that are characters that I've seen. It's just that the only thing that they play in the BL series that we see is just to get the man, and that is it. So what I liked about the characterization of Pearl is that, well, you guys, bahala kayo dyan. Parang you do your own thing, I have my own thing, I'm busy with my own life, right? But then if you need me, I'm here to help you and to support you. And that's what we want. Basically, we want women who are three-dimensional, who are actually real characters. Because if
Yep.
we paint them as one-dimensional, I mean, that is a caricature. It is not, I mean,
Yes.
it might be true, but if that is the only way that we paint women, we are doing women a disservice, right? And that's what I like about and I love about Ash is that his characters are fully fleshed out. You
Yep.
know, if, for example,
Yes.
See
when
Risa. I think Risa's one a good example as well because she's the ex of Cairo, the best friend of Cairo,
exactly,
who fell in love with
exactly,
Cairo, but he outed them out. Pero she's not one dimensional. She's not the
right.
bitchy, angry ex. But she turned and said, "Look, I did something wrong. Please forgive me. If you don't
Exactly.
want to talk to me, I'm good."
Absolutely, right? And we also noticed that with the main character, for example, Gabriel. So in the beginning, he was this confident, cocky, like I'm gonna get, a go-getter. And then later on, when something happens and a circumstance presents itself, then oh my god, and he has a different dimension to himself. He's a very petty, jealous guy. So
Yep.
I mean, these are actual characters, and that's why we relate to the series so much because we see a part of us in them, in all of those situations, in all of those circumstances. So I think that's what's good about what's happening right now is because we are taking the good stuff from what we've seen from the IDLs, and then we are putting our own spin into it. We're putting our own identity
Yes.
into it, and that's what I really
Mm.
like. So I'm hoping that this continues, because women, I mean, they're they're part of our daily lives, right? I mean, there are
Yep.
friends, there are moms, there are sisters. I mean, there are enemies sometimes, but then again, that's not the only thing that they are, right? So I'm curious. Oh, wait, Nolan says Pearl is a benchmark, and the way Kukai, this is from Hello Stranger, also embraced Nico finding himself in Hello Stranger. BLs has been so much better at representing women. Thank you so much, Nolan. So that's a person from South Africa telling us
Yep.
that.
Hello.
And
I
now we
know
have
that.
two
Yeah.
women in the
We
room.
have we have another woman in the room.
we would like to hear from a woman's perspective. What do you guys say about
Hello, so
that?
I'd like to say my thoughts. Joke lang. Joke lang. I'm just kidding.
Another
I give
woman.
the floor to Patty and Ange.
But Maya, you want to say
Actually,
something first?
yeah,
Hindi,
go.
joke lang. Go ahead. Of course, in the spirit of representation, of course, let's give the floor to Ange and Patty. Go ahead.
Mauna ka na. Actually, I don't have much an opinion on this. Kasi compared to you guys, you watched, ay, wow, na-flash yung mga mukha ko. Parang, um, compared to you guys, mas marami na kayong napanood na BL sa akin. So far from what I've watched, the only, parang, I think, annoying women characters, uh, I remember right now are, of course, si Plern Pleng, and then also the one from Kiss Me Again. I forgot
Again?
her.
Mint.
Si Mint. Si Mint. Yung parang kontrabida kay kay Pete and kay Tao. So, and then the rest, the girl characters are just the side
Mhm.
characters na parang, for example, in Together, Pair, uh, initially siya yung gusto ni Tayan. So, parang, okay. But then, yeah, I would have to agree with you guys. I think Pinoy BL is much better in terms of, I guess, parang,
In creating a character story arc.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
in parang representing women in general, parang Pearl is such a breath of fresh air because first parang she wasn't portrayed as this bitchy third party despite her being the ex of Gav. And
Mhm.
parang they stepped it up by parang making her as the actually essential character in the story for the relationship of the two leads to be like stronger or better, something like that. So yun. Uh, yeah. Uh, the 5 years kasi napanood ko so far talaga, it's either yeah, third party or side characters lang na not really essential characters in the story. So yun. I appreciate the fact that they're parang giving importance or more parang flavor in terms of representing women characters in BL series. So that's my opinion.
Right. Thank you for that. Hey,
And we
Thaddeus, you're
have
next.
Thaddeus.
Okay.
Pearl is the kind
Sige.
of person that Thai BL should be looking into. Toxic woman trope has to go. Make it like a male third party so that the story still stays relevant in a way and no hetero influence there in the bill. Hey, yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't have to be a female character, right? It can be something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Sige.
Right.
Oh,
Oh.
can you read that?
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow, may BL ulit tayo for this episode. We have another BL scene.
Kailan?
Advance happy anniv na rin on the first day we met. We met
Aw.
yesterday.
Hey,
A year before.
Ay!
happy anniversary!
Happy
And,
anniversary.
and it's gonna be our monthsary tomorrow.
Well, congratulations. Yes. So how many years?
Months pa lang.
Okay.
Yeah,
Still a milestone. Congratulations,
10.
guys.
It's 10 months now.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
No
10
problem.
months. And then out of the 10 months, you spent 6 on lockdown.
Yep.
That's
Thanks, bro.
LDR is real. LDR is
So
real.
basically, you've only had 4 months of spending time together. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Strong.
Imagine that. Thanks,
No,
Nolan. Thank you, guys.
Happy anniversary. And hi, Will. Thank you for being here. Hi, Sir Will.
Hello.
Thank you. Ayan. All right. Oh, so anyone else want to weigh in?
Si
Patty?
Patty, si
Okay, ako naman.
Patty,
Ate
the
Patty
other
Um,
here.
female in the
Yeah.
hmm,
house.
Anyway, so for me, very similar with Ange also. Very limited din kasi yung BL that I've watched. And so far, yes, I do agree. Filipino BLs have better representation, have better women representation because they make women as essential part of the story. Parang hindi siya plot device, hindi lang siya for display purposes or hindi siya side character. I like how they were able to characterize Pearl in such a way that she played a role in the relationship of Gav and Kai. So I actually I agree that that's something that Thai might want to look into. Kasi although I think this is also cultural, no, don't you think? Kasi parang
Yeah.
some cultures would actually see to it, parang, ano ba? They have higher regard for women compared with
Right.
others.
Mhm.
So I guess it
Yes.
also plays in how we see it the stories that, or in the stories that they actually show in their respective regions or in their respective countries. So, but I hope Pinoy BLs are actually a gateway to better women representation in other BLs around the world. So there.
Yes,
Correct.
thank you for that, Miss Alaska. Charot.
Kulang ng corona.
O sakto
Jesus.
naka-shinyon na si Patty.
And I want to
Shinyon.
add, I was
Mm.
so happy that actually, parang it's us who will start the trend for girls' love. This
That's
Yes.
true. That's true. Very excited.
That's a different level of women representation in BLs, right? So they're not strictly
Yes.
BLs, but now it's GLs as well. And that's
Yeah.
true.
Correct.
I mean,
At saka
there are
ano,
so many stories and they have to be told. Yes, Patty.
correct. At saka, hindi masyado kasi na-highlight ang GLs. It's always the BL. So, it's actually good that we have Pearl Next Door. And
Mm.
siya yung magiging parang flagship GL natin for Philippines. So,
Flagship, I like
yay!
that.
Yeah.
Correct.
Great.
And it's actually going to be a history in itself.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And because she's already a well-established character, I mean, it's going to be easier for her to,
Mhm.
quote unquote, penetrate the market.
Ito.
Yeah.
We're just hoping that
True.
it flies just as well as Game Boys. All
Yeah, and
right,
And
so
we
hopefully
have
have its after effects with Chasing Sunsets and the others na GLF
right
started
from
before her.
PFS, correct, right.
Ah.
So yun, di ba? Parang
correct.
sana yung mga previous stories weren't noticed before. Hopefully, they also get highlighted. I mean, people backtrack and then they remember or they notice or they acknowledge that, hey, there are other BLs that were done before or GLs that were done before. Maybe we need to revisit them, and see what they offered.
Yeah.
Sige,
And
basahin lang natin yung comment ni Z. He says, Pearl's character is a
yes.
game changer in BL. This is also the reason Pearl became an instant favorite character in Game Boys. She also is a representation of all BL fans to ship Kyril. Yes, parang we were
Yeah.
basically Pearl, right?
Yes,
in
Pearl
the
Next
instances,
Door.
when we were shipping the two, we were like, oh my god, I'm Pearl. Parang ganun
Yeah.
din natin.
And parang she became aspirational for that matter. We all want to be like
Absolutely.
her, diba? Which becomes a good
True,
example for
true.
everyone who's watching.
So much more.
We want to be
Pearl
her
is my
best friend.
bisexual queen, according to Nolan. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
right. And we're
Yes,
so excited
Pearl
for Pearl
next
Next
door.
Door. Wait, may date na ba? There's no date yet, right?
There's none yet, ata.
Wala pa. Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
parang
no.
wala
just
pa.
October, but no date specifically. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Maya, did you wanna add to that?
Well, I agree with all of you guys na super duper distinct talaga ng story arcs nila pareho. They both have super duper totally distinct characters and both go on opposite ways or sides of the spectrum. But siguro I just want to avoid creating a stereotype that one is like a Filipino flavor or the other one is like a Thai
Yep.
stereotype of a female character. I think it's really just so happened that for Plern Pleng, the story arc or the character really
Yeah.
was just too extreme. Diba? Kasi in fairness naman to Thai BLs, I just don't want to generalize. There are some Thai BLs with female characters who can become
Strong.
toxic but chose not to, diba? There are some
Yes.
either way pa rin. And there are also still
Yeah.
some Thai BLs who have a positive portrayal of female. I think it's really just so happened that for Together With Me, the writer made the characterization so extreme that it became too toxic. Yun lang.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they did it for the sake of creating action or putting too much
Excitement.
excitement in the story, that it sacrificed the the values of the
Women
character
represented.
or something,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
personality. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they did it for entertainment purposes that it became too much.
Right, right,
Mhm.
right.
Pero naalala ko
Yun.
bigla, I think one parang well representation na gustuhan ko in 5 years is yung From Soto's S, si I forgot her.
Earth.
Here.
Si
Yes.
Earth,
Yeah,
Earth,
I
Yes,
like her.
love
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's also
Friend
there's
zone.
Yiwa. Tapos si
Friend zone.
Wan,
Yeah,
si,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, si Yiwa. Tapos there's also one from Water
Iwa.
Boys. She was the first GL na I saw integrated with the BL na rin.
Right, 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 right. I keep
I
forgetting the
haven't
name of the
watched
girl.
Waterboy.
Tapos in
Oh, Earth is
Taiwan naman, if you cross over, there's two
Yeah.
characters I know from history. Si Lang, forgive me for the Chinese pronunciation, but it's like Lang Shi. She's the ghost of the other BL. Parang siya naging pearl in between the two stories, but she's a ghost. And there's also Meng
Oh,
Meng, who was like the BL fangirl who was shipping the two guys living in the same room, her best friend and the other guy.
interesting.
I haven't
Interesting.
finished Love by Chance yet, but I forgot the girl there also. I like her.
Which one?
Love by
Oh my God.
Chance.
The sister?
The Mestiza one, their friend. I
Tin
forgot
Can? Forgot. Oh my
by
God. Who?
Chance. Anyway, I like the girl character.
Oh my God. We have. Oh my God.
500 followers.
500 followers. Wow. Thank you
Yay!
guys.
Happy 500, guys!
Appreciate it. Thank you so
Happy
much.
five
Hope you continue
centennial,
to.
fifth tennial.
And hopefully you join in on the conversation. We'd really like to hear from you guys.
Yes.
Kaya,
Yes.
and if there are topics or issues in the BL world that you want to discuss, just comment ahead.
Right.
Yeah.
Put it out
I
in the
think
open. Yes.
right. I think we're ready to move
Hopefully.
on to our next one. To the second one. Tama ba?
Yes.
Kasi medyo press for time na tayo. Ang dami natin nasabi. 44 minutes.
Okay, so I think it's time to choose a new color, no? So we have to go
Yeah.
back to our splatterboard. Ooh, nawala na si Magenta.
Right. Who's gonna choose the next one? Maya, ikaw mag-pick
Green.
ng next person.
Ange, go. Ange.
And she
Green is
said,
my favorite color.
go for green. Okay. So we're gonna choose the green one. And the topic is
Oh,
okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
controversial.
And okay, okay. And it has to be that photo, right? Oh my gosh. Okay.
What a better way to present this topic than this photo?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe to give a bit of a background. We all know
Ooh.
Touch Me Not. It is basically about consent.
Okay.
So one of the concerns that we have with BLs in general is that there is a lack of consent in some of the scenes and in some of the character developments and plot points, right? So, for example, there was one particular scene wherein somebody took advantage of a drunk person, and then in the morning, they basically tried to make the person responsible for what happened to them. So that's messed up. But in any case, I'm gonna let you guys talk first. Would like to share. Would like to weigh in first. Consent in Vienna.
Sige, I'll start.
Okay.
Okay. So, in terms of consent, ano ba? This is very evident in a lot of Thai BLs in such a way that consent isn't really. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not important, but what I'm saying is this is something that is overlooked most of the time in a number of series, and Personally, I find it really problematic because we mistake consent for something else. Sometimes there are scenes that we overlook it as something that's romantic, something that's very kilig, but in reality, when we actually dissect how it happens, it's not very healthy. It's not right. It's not
It's
proper.
not right.
So I guess
Oh.
I believe that consent should really be taken into consideration seriously in a number of BL series. Although for I've only seen a limited number of BL series, Philippine Pinoy BL series, and has this been touched in some?
What
Parang
do you
hindi
mean?
pa masyado. Not so
I think
much.
not really, because
Not as much, no.
we're in a battle of morality kasi because of our Christian Catholic background. So
Right.
having that
Correct.
would go against with that moral background pa lang.
Yes. So
So
it's not
actually,
something that's very highlighted in our series, diba? Not so much.
yeah,
Mm,
may
Yeah.
MTRCB pa sila.
correct.
Mm-mm. Correct, correct. So yun. I wish siguro sana for other, not just for Thai series, but for other series in general, they might want to look into this because it's something that we need to, I think it's universal that we need to ask for the other's permission before we do something, right? I think that's a common moral ground for everyone. So I guess maybe we can, I don't know. I just hope that in other series or in the future series they might want to look into this.
Yep.
Mhm.
I have a question regarding that. Does it go back kasi to the yung main framework nila before of creating the BLs? Like you have the tropes from the
Mm-mm.
masculine and submissive. So the submissive ones are usually the ones being dragged into that.
Mm.
Correct.
Mhm.
Oo.
I think so. I mean,
Totoo.
for example, in Love by Chance, right? I think it was Techno, and I forgot the character's name, but I think it was
Yeah.
Kenkwa. Hi, Jackie, by the way. Hi.
Hi, Shaki.
Nice to
Love
see
your
you.
videos.
Yeah, we love your videos. And yes, I love. Nolan says, "I love how you came in as a reference Tarn type because Shaki really, really loves Tarn type. That's his number one BL. Right. But really, like for
Oh,
example,
okay.
Mm.
I was
So it's
mentioning
a
Love by
perfect opportunity for him to share.
Right, share
Mhm.
Shaki.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely. So there in Love by Chance, for example, yun. But what happened was Techno got drunk, and then the other character, Kenkla, I think, basically took advantage of that. So he slept with Kenkla, and then the next morning he was basically saying, "Hey, you have to take responsibility for what you did. I mean, we slept together. I should be your boyfriend, etc., and so forth." So what I find problematic is really there are a lot of scenes and a lot of scenarios in a lot of BLs wherein there is no consent whatsoever, and even if the person is drunk, I mean, especially when the person is drunk, or especially when the person is not in a capacity to say no, I mean, the person should go back, right? Because if there
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
even if there is no no, if they are not capable of saying no, that is still a lack of consent. And when you allow, or when you depict it in a series, or when you basically portray it as being okay in the end, that's basically tantamount to consenting non-consensual relations, or it can be even rape, right? So
Mhm.
that's one thing that I hope can be changed in a lot of the series that we see, because consent is very, very paramount. I mean, it goes to the core of a relationship. You have to be able to trust the person that
Yes.
you're going to give your body to, the person that you're supposed to trust with all of your being and all of your heart and mind and soul, right? But the fact that it started with a lie, or it started without consent, then I mean that puts the relationship on rocky ground. Maybe eventually there might be some forgiveness and whatnot, but the mere fact that it started off as such should be something to consider, should be something to think about. Because it's very Nolan says technically pissed me off, right? I mean, same. It was so annoying. Like anyways. So there, I'm really happy though that in recent BLs that we've seen, there is consent. And of course, I'm going to reference Game Boys as well because it is my favorite BL at the moment. So far, rather. that there was consent. Parang, you can show me your body if you need to. I mean, you can take a bath if you need to, stuff like that. And that's very, very important, especially we have young people who are watching these DLs. They will be influenced by what they see on screen, whether we like it or not, or whether we are able to, let's say, mind what they are watching. They are watching, and they will come to the conclusion that it's okay if they see it on screen. So if they see someone taking advantage of another person, not asking for consent, taking what they want, then that's going to be okay for them because they see it. Especially if there is no accountability in the end, if there is no responsibility for the action that was taken, then they're going to see that as okay, it's normal. People have done it, so I can do it as well, right? So I mean, it's a very slippery slope, and it is something that we have to really tread carefully on, especially if we are in the industry. So I really like that these days consent is something very, very important, and it's something really talked about. So hopefully we push that forward in future bills.
Correct. And siguro sa akin super quick lang. I guess the negative impact of lack of consent in BS, especially when it's just done so many times in multiple BS, that it creates a stereotype among same-sex
Yes.
relationships, or that it
Yes.
creates a stereotype among the people along the spectrum in a way that they take advantage, or in a way that they are very sneaky just to get what they want, or to get into the relationship that they want, or the fact that the relationship is something that is undesirable for that matter, because there's one
Mhm.
party that's not desiring the relationship and there's another that is forcing himself or herself to the other. So I think it's really just that it's the negative impact that it has on the people in that community.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. We are molding young minds, people. let's be let's be
Yeah.
responsible. That's it.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Next paint na ba? Or does anyone else have to say something?
Actually, short lang din. I think anything non-consensual or fantasizing is
Oh.
really wrong. But it's not really, parang I guess it's not just in BS. I don't know if you guys all
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are a lot of non-consensual like
Actually,
things that they've done there. And I'm just happy that in current times, talagang ina-address na siya. Uh, it's not uh, they would usually go with that story flow already. So I guess it's just really an issue uh right now for me. Kasi most of the I'm not sure the years that you've mentioned, what years were they released before. But
good point.
yeah,
Mhm.
I guess
Mhm. Also
uh,
good.
it's 2020. So I guess this for me, I think it's already being addressed.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
sort of an issue that we have na like back then. Kasi kulang pa talaga yung awareness ng mga tao before. So,
Yeah. Yeah, but the
Man.
screenshot was taken from 2019, last year lang.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what I was
Oh,
saying. Yeah.
So there are exceptions.
No, but I think Ange made a good point, right? I mean, the
Yes, it
question
does.
and the problem of consent is not just with BLs. Although what we, because the thing is, since we are part of the community, I think it strikes even more to heart for us
Yeah, true.
because these
Yes.
are our stories. So that's why we're a little more passionate about it when it comes
True,
Yeah.
true.
to
Correct.
the genre. Yeah.
And we'd like to
And
say thank you to
also,
Shaki for showing the love
yeah.
earlier. He said, "Yes, love this conversation. Thank you, and join
Thank
us as
you.
well by sharing your
Thank
thoughts."
you.
And please feel
Go,
free
Mar.
to share with us your comments, no, on the comment section below. If you have your
Right,
own
right, right.
opinions, if you have your own pieces, yeah, so please share them in the comments below. But as I was saying, there is also one angle to consent that I think it's we haven't talked about yet. We earlier we've talked about consent being that like the yes, like if the person wants to have sexual relations with some other characters, it has to have a resounding yes. But there's
Mm-hmm.
also one thing about consent, because there's also this nonverbal communication, which is often this. I
Mm.
mean, this may take us long
True.
and long and long if we'll talk about nonverbal communications, because there are
Right.
just because there are cultural nuances in place. But
Yes.
there's a
Mm.
specific scene in a specific Thai BL series where the person is clearly uncomfortable
Right.
with the situation. There is this scene from a series where one character told the other character that he has this history of abuse in the
Abuse.
past.
Mm.
Mm.
Yes,
Mm.
and
Okay.
Alam na.
I
Alam
don't
na.
Alam mo this.
Alam na.
I
Alam na, alam
there.
na.
I don't know how I don't know what other words to say. I mean, I don't know how to put it in a better way, but that is clearly a resounding no. I mean, if the person has history and the person is clearly and obviously uncomfortable with the situation, don't press on it. I mean, um there were scenes that, how do you say this? There were scenes that led to a bed scene. I mean, in that
Mm.
particular context, that person may be lucky. I mean, okay, let's name Tarn may be lucky that type went for it. I mean, they had this relationship, I mean, sexual relationship, which led on to being a romantic relationship. But either way, how no matter how you look at it, no matter at which angle you look at it, it's still a resounding no. It was a resounding no. I mean, clearly the person is uncomfortable. The person was crying to sleep. The person was um skipped school just because of what happened. He was reminded of the history. It's just that um, I just hope that productions, being responsible productions, should be
Mm.
more what do you call this, responsible, if for the lack of a better term, because I can't stress this enough how important consent is.
Mm.
And it's not only for sex, it's of how important consent is, even touching the person, even especially now. I mean, now it's in a different context because of the
Mhm.
pandemic.
Mhm.
It's touch somebody, it's really something that would put you off. But consent in a way that if that person is okay with what you're about to do, even for example, a character would have for example, a character is spending his or her birthday, and then he or she doesn't want to have it announced in public.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Mhm.
that's not the usual context of consent that we know and what we are accustomed to. But you should really ask the. I mean, okay, there are nuances again, cultural nuances because of surprise. So what about the context of a birthday surprise? But then again, you have to understand if the person is clearly uncomfortable with it. There's another concept that popped into my mind. Uh, because there's this series will have a season two, right? Tarn type. And then I think in their season two they will tackle marriage. I just hope that if they ever have a scene where Starn or type, I don't know, whichever, proposes to the other
Mhm.
to one another, I just hope it's not done in a way that it's so grand and majestic and that pressures the other person to say yes. I mean, I
Mm.
love
Yeah.
watching flash mob movie
Flash mobs.
videos, but doing it in public is pressuring the person to say yes because that person would want to save his or her face in public. I mean, how can I
Mm.
say no if there are so many people watching me? I mean,
Mm.
what if that person is not as vocal and not as strong in expressing himself or herself that no means no? I mean, he or she may give out a yes that came out of his or her nose and not from his or her heart. So that's really something that we also need to address. Um, Good enough. I think there are not so much problems with BL series in general where non-verbal consent is tackled. It's just that there's I just really can't forget that particular scene from Tarn Type
Mm.
where
Mm.
uh, Type was clearly uncomfortable with the situation, and you see Tarn going on top of him. It's hard for me to watch, actually. So, yeah.
Okay.
True.
And I think that's one of the things that may have been a good opportunity for Turn Type because, I mean, I think that was one of the. I think that was the only series wherein the main character actually has a history of abuse, right? And when you have a history of abuse, and I'm not speaking from experience, but if you have a history of abuse, I can imagine what goes through your head if physical
Yeah.
touch is involved,
Yeah.
right? So it was sort of portrayed in the scenes, like in the flashbacks and whatever. And he started crying, so his body was physically averse to the touch or to whatever was happening, right? But it also sort of gave me a glimpse of what could be happening in this person's head, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because for example, the type of love that they experience is not the type of love that I've experienced. So basically, the type of physical touch that they've experienced is not the type that I've experienced. So how do they take that? I mean, how do they translate or how do they process that in their heads? And how do they come up with the decisions that they come up with based on everything and all that baggage, right? So that's why I couldn't really, I couldn't really sort of like get a full understanding of it because I've never been in that situation, right?
Mhm.
But it is very important, just like you said, that consent is evident. And I think Nolan said, yes,
Yes.
that as long as the person is in the right state of mind to actually give that consent. So when we say in the right state of
Yes.
mind, that means that this person has logically thought through it and that they're not emotional or they are not being bugged or influenced by something that happened in the past. So it has to be a clear and let's say calm decision that they come to, diba? So I mean, that's all. That's what consent is, really, right? They have to be
Mhm.
very conscious that the decision that they are making is not based on anything else but the love that they have for the person, right? Also, Capono brought up a good point. Does it need to be verbal? Not necessarily. I mean, as we know, in Game Boys,
Yeah.
for example,
Yep.
I don't know if everyone noticed it, but a lot of people also noticed that, for example, when Gav was reaching for the mask, he did so ever so slowly, and you do that because you are still testing and giving the person the opportunity to actually say no or
Say
to
no.
refuse, right? But because you're doing it slowly, you're basically giving them a chance to respond in the way that they want to. And it was very clear that Kai responded with a yes when he did that ever slight move forward. He leaned forward, which means that yes, you can take my mask off. So it doesn't have to be verbal. It can also be physical or non-verbal. So as long as it's clear and as long as the person is in the right state of mind, that is the consent that we need.
Correct. And when we're
Char.
not sure, it's always best to ask, right?
Correct. When
Yes.
in doubt,
Correct. Let's not
ask.
assume. Bawal maging
Let us not
asumero. Because when
assume.
we assume, we make an ass of you and me.
Yeah.
Tama. I
Potassium.
love that.
Potassium.
I
I
love
want,
that.
I want to add also, I think this is where the stigma for men and women will parang come into play. Uh,
Mm.
you guys imagine it that parang type is a female character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So would you
Right.
see more
Exactly.
Yeah.
backlash?
Yeah.
Exactly. If she was a female
So
character, there would be no question about it. Mm.
it's wrong.
But
But then if it's between two men, it's so
Good point. It's a good
yeah.
point.
But I have another question though regarding this. Like, when do you draw the line?
Mm.
Because this could really happen to reality as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
From storytelling to the reality itself. When would you draw that line? Especially when it's part of a story.
Oh, that's a good question, right?
mm,
So we can
yeah.
say that it happened the way it did because the writer wanted to make a point, right? Or to
I guess
wanted
Yeah.
it's
to
wrong if
portray
you're
the reality.
fantasizing it, I guess. Which that series did.
Mm.
Yes.
I guess there's
Or
also
I
the
guess
question
it
of
really can happen because it's a
mhm,
reality. I just hope
mhm,
that there will be accountability in the end, or
Yes.
they will just
Yeah.
show the consequences properly because it is a reality. Because some people really
mhm,
do take consent for granted, and I
mhm.
just hope
Yeah.
that the proper implications will be shown. So at least there's will be good sides of the story or examples at the end.
Right. Or
Yeah.
maybe the term
Yeah, I think.
romanticizing. We don't want to romanticize rape
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
rape is rape, period,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Mm.
But I think if for the sake of the story, if the writer and the production would really want to give the viewers, I mean, that angle of the stories, just have to put a disclaimer in the beginning of the series of the episode, in the beginning of that scene.
Mhm.
After, just you just have to introduce a disclaimer and then debrief after that what happened was not okay and what happened should not be tolerated. This is the sake of this is it's just for the sake of the story. Just have to do
Mhm.
it responsibly. It's not
Oh.
Right.
naman that we're telling them to not to do scenes like that. No, it's
Yeah.
because it's also a truth. It's a relevant thing to talk about. It's the truth.
Yes.
It's just that we
Mhm.
have to do it responsibly, in my opinion.
Right. And it's good if these scenes actually strike up conversations and discussions because at least we'll be able to work through it together, like come to let's say a
Yes.
common understanding or maybe even come to a common decision. Now, no, that's wrong or yes, that's wrong, right? Yeah. But at least
I,
even if we don't
I just
agree,
want
at
to
least
say
we can
sorry
talk
to
about
be
it.
Maya.
Why?
Sorry,
Hi.
Maya.
Current time, yes.
Spoiler.
It's okay.
Yes, Maya, that's your
No,
favorite show,
no, for
right?
everyone's info, it's only because I'm the only person here in the group who hasn't seen Starn Type. So it's okay. I kind of get context clues. And
Oh yeah. Oh
it's
my
okay.
god. I forgot.
No problem at all.
Oh my god.
No,
Maya.
without the consent issue, I actually like the chemistry of the two characters.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
agree. I agree with Anne on that.
I
Yes.
think
We'll
you need
watch
to
it,
watch the
Maya.
show to get better.
I will. I
I
will.
still watch it.
For everyone's info, for everyone who's watching, the only reason why I haven't watched is because my principal is saved the best for last because I've gotten good reviews. I don't want to put it at the start so that I don't set expectations too high. That's the only reason. Okay, so there are some questions
Oh
from
no, also
Kapono.
so
Kapono.
sorry if
I
you're already
haven't seen
spoiling.
Tarn Time either.
Sorry.
Thank you for.
Oh no, for spoiling.
Yeah, sorry, Kapoto,
So
and
yeah,
thank you
questions for
for
the ladies. Would you like to?
sympathizing with me.
Mm-mm.
So Capone has a question for both girls. What do you hope consent
Oh
looks
no.
like for in a
Oh
GL, or
no.
what should it look like when it comes to women in both GLs or BLs?
Ooh. Thank you for that wonderful question. Charot.
Miss Universe.
Miss Alaska, go on.
Let me just think about it.
I guess in normal consent.
Yeah. I guess just like how anybody else would ask, just like how anyone would ask permission from you to do something, or just about anything.
Mhm.
For me, whether it's verbal or non-verbal, so as long as the other person agrees to what is supposed to be done,
Perfect. Yeah, yeah.
that would be all right, I guess, regardless.
Mhm. Can I weigh in? I just remembered what Gwen, one of my colleagues, said. I think a week ago. She said that basically sometimes when people do stuff for her, I mean, without asking for her permission, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it feels uncomfortable for her, especially if it's something that she can do herself, because she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want other
Hmm.
people to be burdened or to be inconvenienced. So she likes to do things for herself, and she's gotten used to that because she is living alone. She's independent. So when people just randomly do stuff for her that she wants to do and can do on her own. Like maybe, for example, carry grocery bags or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little put off by it. I mean, she appreciates that it is done by the person, but she would appreciate it more if the person asked her first. Not assume that she can't do it or just automatically assume that
Yeah.
she's weak or something like that. So, I mean, so I just remember that because of, the question. I don't know if that answers your question,
Yes,
Capone,
I
but
guess,
I just
and
wanted to
also
bring
I
it.
think there's not much difference between uh in terms of consent. There's not much
Mm-mm.
It's not much different if whether you're a boy or a girl. I guess
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
long as they
actually,
ask
we're
for
all.
permission,
it's the same
regardless
That's
for
a
if it's verbal
universal
or
thing.
non-verbal. That's
yep.
important. Well, that's what's important. You ask for permission, regardless on however manner you want it. So long as you ask for permission.
Cool. Ayan. Okay
Okay.
na ba tayo dito?
Tama na?
Tama
Oh,
na.
Lord na pala.
All right.
So
Thank you
we're
very much
only still
for.
in the second question, and we're back to
Yes,
the
oh my
drawing
God.
board.
Oh my God, time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Charot.
Yes.
Yes. So
Actually,
who
we could
wants
have
to
been
pick
a 1 hour.
next?
Oh my God, two questions for an hour? So 30 minutes per question. Wow.
That's what it seemed like.
Okay. I think
Yeah.
we have a question from Gopono. And that's an interesting question, actually. In the
Yes.
case when Pearl got all four boys together to talk, should she have gotten consent to do that project even though she had good intentions behind it?
Oh, good
Huh.
Although we all
question.
Oh.
Good
appreciate it.
question.
Um.
Well, actually, yeah, we do. Hmm.
That's a good question. I think in this case,
Uh.
I would have to say it was okay what you did, right? Because
Mhm.
um, the goal really is to get them to talk and to get them to resolve any differences that they had. So if she had asked for permission, what do you think the answer would have been? The boys would have
No.
said, "No, I don't want to talk to that person," right?
Yeah.
And of course, if you do that, if you ask for permission, there's nothing's going to happen. I mean, they're not going to talk, nothing will be resolved, and therefore things will be the way that they still are. So, of course, in that sense, it was okay to do it because ultimately the goal is for them to be able to talk through it and to resolve their differences and to basically fix the problem, right? But so that's a different level or a different, let's say, scenario or dimension. Whereas the consent that is problematic for us is the lack of consent when it comes to touching a person, or basically to have sexual relations with them, or basically the whatever problematic scenario that we seen and encountered in BL relationships. So in this case, I would have to say, in my opinion, that it was okay, right?
I want to add also, I would have to agree with Mike. She asked consent from the two boys, which she is
Yeah.
not close with. But for
Mm.
Cairo and Gab, she has been friends with Gab for years. And Cairo, she was really close to Cairo, especially when we had uh,
Mm.
the pandemic. So I guess it's okay.
Right. And also,
For
Although,
me,
go
since we
ahead.
mentioned techno earlier, the intent of Kenkla was not good. It was basically very malicious because he wanted to get into his pants. That was it. So it was not of noble intention and should not have been done in the first place. Yeah.
Although, don't you think there is a very thin line of wherein, parang, what would be the boundaries wherein a person should ask for permission or not?
That's a
But
good
you
question. I think, I'm sorry.
No,
Yes,
there's a,
Ange, go ahead.
go ahead, Ange.
no, I'm saying it really depends on the situation. Like for the case of Game Boy, for the
Hmm.
close with the other two boys, so it's okay that she didn't for permission. Like she knows how like
yeah,
the boys will act. That's why like she included. But
yeah,
uh yeah.
And her
And I
intent
think,
yeah,
was
and I
good. It
think,
wasn't really to take advantage. It's not selfish. So yeah.
yeah,
right, it wasn't
Yeah,
selfish.
yeah.
To
yeah.
take advantage. Right? Yes, Mark,
Yeah,
you were
and I
saying
think
something.
this is where nuances come in. I mean, in a smaller scale, whereas in terms in the scene of Pearl with the four boys, no, it's in a smaller scale, I think, compared to the cultural nuances I was talking about earlier. But still nuances because for me, if ako kasi when I say curse words to
Right, there we
friends,
go.
I would make sure that they will not get offended. I mean, sometimes they do. So it's in a okay. That's a different conversation. But um, for me, being offended comes from a perspective of the messaging that came across. I mean,
Mhm.
no, your
Hmm.
words are not offensive if the other person or the receiver of the communication is not offended. I mean, what makes a conversation offensive or what makes your words offensive is because of the perception of the one receiving it. I mean, that's how I see it. In terms of Pearl and the four boys, um, I think she knows the two boys, Gav and Kyra, well. That she probably knows how would they respond negatively or positively And if ever negatively, I think they can work it out. I mean, that's
Mhm.
we're not robots here. We make mistakes if ever, and then we
Yeah.
correct them. That's how life works, I think. So, in terms of this, if ever Gav and Kyle took offense of what she did, knowing them, I think they will probably tell Pearl that they were offended, and they will work it out. I mean, they're friends and
Mhm.
not strangers grouped
Yeah.
Right.
together.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Patty, was it you who asked, I mean, how do we set the boundaries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it you? I
Yeah.
guess it depends on, like Mark said, it's really the dynamic between the individuals involved, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you have to be able to talk about it, like what's cool for you, what's not cool for me, where can we meet? I mean, up to what, like
Extent.
up to where can we push the envelope or whatever. So it has to be really a conversation, and that's why we always talk about communication being the key in any relationship, because you have to be able to let's say set those boundaries or set those guidelines, because you have to have an agreement of what are the things that is okay, what are the things that are non-negotiables, for example. Diba?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
you can actually build the your relationship based on that conversation. So hopefully, that's something that happens in all of our relationships, and not just for our romantic relationships, but also in our familial, brotherly, sisterly, etc. relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah. By the way, hi
for the future,
Jericho.
right? Hi, Jericho. For the future writers, I think it would be great that they would put in a clear storyline or connection between the individuals. So we'd see that what she was doing or what he'd be doing is in their consent. Parang she knows or he would know that it's
Mhm.
within their boundaries. Kumbaga.
Right.
Mm. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
nice.
next color.
Next color. Who's gonna choose? Anyone? Go.
I can pick. Let's pick my tribal color, red.
Okay, red it
Yeah.
is. My T-shirt.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Oh.
tumpak.
Story pleasing. So
I
I
don't
guess
give
in
up
this case,
hope.
story pleasing will pertain to the mix of storytelling and fan service. So how
Yeah.
do we feel about some
Uh,
stories being inclined towards fan service more than the story? So great, I'll start. For me, I don't have any problem with story pleasing at all because I think that's the intent of shows after all. It's really to appeal to a certain fan base, and I guess that's also why they're doing it. It's also to earn money, to make a business, to market themselves, and why not? And the goal at the end of the day is to earn money through fans, and fans will always bring in the money for them. And the more fans there are, the more shows that will come in the future. So, yep, I'm more forgiving with story pleasing this time.
For me, story pleasing, it can be a 50-50 situation for me. Like how Game Boys is for us. It is both socially relevant, but at the same time, the writers, the production, they listen to what the fans want. So it was a Game Boys is a perfect example of how the fans were able to how fans were pleased with the outcome, but at the same time, we were still able to get the quality story or the quality series that we deserve. So
Mhm.
Ako, being a fangirl, I'm obviously not, I don't obviously have a problem with fan service, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't appreciate good storytelling. So, yeah. And basically, I watch these to get entertained. So, if I'm entertained, then that's good. So, let's
Mhm.
keep it at that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ako
How
naman
about for the
speaking from the
gentleman?
from the other perspective, I'm more of a storyteller than a fanboy.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the balance of both. That you would give us good fan service, good killing moments, good entertainment, but with a good foundation of a story. Even if like let's say there's little nuances where it would be I'd read the like episode would be a purely fan service. As long as it's tied with the whole story or I see the logic within the story, I'm good with that.
Right. Agree.
For me, it's not an issue for me because that's the production's choice if they want to put out good story for a series, then that's their choice. I mean, it's up to them on how they will tie up the story. And for fan service, it's if the series is purely fan service, aka together.
Uh-oh.
I saw that coming.
I
Maybe
mean,
not.
You
I
went
mean,
there.
yeah,
All the
we'll go there.
way.
I mean, I'm not a hater of Together. If you
No, no,
if the
no.
audience
We
can
enjoyed it.
watch our second episode, yeah, I gave it
Yeah.
a perfect for the
Yep.
killing moment. It's just that for this context, um, Together was they favored more the fan service. In my opinion, they
Yep.
favored more the fan service rather than the storytelling. Did it work for them? Yes. I mean,
Mhm.
it's up to the perfect timing of when you will put out the story. It's up to the production. It's up to the audience who will watch it. It's up to how the fans will receive it. So it's I think it's circumstantial. It's not an issue for me. It's just that if you put out a fan service um driven story, I mean a fan service
Mhm.
driven series, and
Yep.
then the audience at that time looks for a storytelling kind of series, then your series will not market. It's your choice. I mean, if
Right.
the people do not receive it, it's not their fault. If the people do not receive it, it it's also not your fault. I mean, it's your choice, but it's not your fault. It's just that storytelling or fan service for me personally, I would go for a perfect balance of both
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
fan
Yeah.
serv fan service it's what hooks me personally with the characters and the actors even after watching the series. While storytelling would drive me towards finishing the series until the finale. It's just that
Yeah.
you just have
That's
for me you just have to put a perfect balance to it to hook to make certain fans hooked. But as we've seen with the success of Together, um, the fan service, um, the fan service in the series were really how to put this every minute, if I would say, but it
Yeah.
Mhm.
worked for them,
You
and
know,
they and it yeah it gave them still together, which is for me the perfect balance of storytelling and fan service. So it's just it's their choice. I mean, I think I personally don't see anything wrong with it.
mm, I agree. But it's difficult though, I think, to strike that perfect balance, right? Especially if, for
Mhm.
example, you're in the business for business. And you're in the business for profit. That's what
Yeah.
basically what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And I think that's what let's say it, that's what GMMTV is. It's basically a cash cow, right? So the reason why they're
Yep.
putting out
Yep.
all these deals
Yep.
is uh, basically fans are here for it. I mean, they pay good money. They get good money from the fan service and everything, right? And that's why I think some of the storytelling is still, shall we say, should I say traditional? But I mean, it follows a specific format, right? I
Yep.
think because
It does.
it's a formula that has worked for them, and that's why they're still doing that, still doing that, still doing that. Because people are eating it up, right? And they're getting good money from it. So, and that's why I think that more than the fan service, yung Filipino BL, again, I'm going to reference Game Boys here, is a more balanced mix of fan service and storytelling. Because what I liked about it is it really put our characters into the now, into what's happening in the world today, right? They were smack in the middle of the pandemic. So it was basically part of the story itself, right? It basically was a plot device or a character or a storyline or a setting, right? As opposed to other VLs wherein it's relegated to the background or not even highlighted or not even acknowledged, right? Or maybe because it was shot prior to the pandemic or they don't want to focus on it too much. But in that case, I feel that Amos was able to do that. They were able to put out a very socially relevant, but also a very pakilig type of series. And we also have very responsible characters as well, right? For Gabriel, is going to the front lines, providing food, and he's distributing right goods and also helping out with services and such. So that's what I really liked about that because fact of the matter is we are in this pandemic. It is a reality. We are all going through it, right? But even though we are experiencing something very shitty, and it's a very dark time in our lives. That highlights for me. It highlights all the more the budding and growing and blossoming love relationship between these two individuals. That's why I was gunning for them, talaga. Because I mean, this was something beautiful happening in something so bad, di ba? And especially at a time like this. So I think that it is important that we do fan service or they do fan service because again, you need the money, right? To
And
be able
them
to put out,
coins.
right? You need them coins to be able to put out more stories.
Content in
What
the
I'm
future.
hoping,
Yeah, that's true.
right? What I'm hoping is though that they don't sacrifice the story to cater to the fans, right? I want them to stay
Yeah.
true to their original idea. I want them to stay true to the characters that they built, right? Kasi ang pangit naman na parang, oh, baguhin natin to kasi ano, sinabi ng ano, madla da ganere, 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 right? I mean, you can only do that so far until you start sacrificing the integrity of your story and the dignity of your characters, right? So we want these stories to be told in the way that they were intended and still be able to rake in all that money. So idea first. Yes, yes, good job. Thank you so
Yes.
much. And we're hoping that we see more of these stories, right? I think it was mentioned that in the tweets that there are so many stories that we can still tell, and we want those stories to be told. So we talked about chubby characters, we talked about GLs, we talked about trans characters, we talked about all the other spectrums, right? All the different members. Uy, hi, thank you for your message. All the other members of the spectrum. So these stories need to be told. Now,
Integrity is
some of these
everything.
stories, diba? Some of these stories might not be as profitable because they might not be as popular as characters, but they still need to be told. And hopefully, what is that? And hopefully, these stories get told and don't get shanked because the fans are not, like buying into it or something. So I'm really hoping that we get to that point wherein we tell these stories and the fans are still gonna be there. They're still gonna respect it. They're still gonna watch it. They're still gonna be able to enjoy it, right? So yun, hopefully in the future, soon.
Well, although, if I may say that, not to throw shade into GMM naman because they put up so many content that we've all devoured and
Yes.
we've all
Yes.
loved.
Correct.
Not to
They
throw,
still gave us good times in fairness, and they
yeah, not
kept
to
us
throw them
through.
under the bus, no.
Absolutely,
But if
absolutely,
you,
absolutely.
if you guys remember, Sotos was there together in
Mm,
2016. They were at the brink
Mm.
of bankruptcy, and then Sotos, as
right.
we've
Yes.
all reviewed, with the good storytelling. So I think it's just up to the time if how of what the audience wants. So if in 2016 their audience would prefer a series with more storytelling, which was proven with the success of Sotos, and then 2020, given that we have so many options for series or movies or content with so many stories. If you want this kind of story, you have this. You want this kind of story, you have this. And then if you want a pure fan service, then you have together, and it worked for them.
Right. It has to be able to. I mean, not everything is going to be loved by everyone. Hopefully, these certain types of stories find certain niches wherein they can shine in those niches, right? And they will be
Yeah,
Can I
yeah.
appreciated. Yes,
can I
and
share my opinion? I think the only one's perfecting the balance between storytelling and fan service so far for me are K-dramas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually.
I
Mm.
have to agree with that.
I think Ono has a
Yeah, I like what Kavona said. That he says that I think fans sometimes hold a strong power with storylines because of how these companies rely a lot on their views. Fan influence is really, but sometimes detrimental to the creators. Yeah, I agree.
right.
Because
Yes.
yeah,
Uh,
pero what I like about now is because way back 2010 we were disconnected from the teleseries. We were just consuming it. Now we're interacting with it. That's the
Right.
beauty of it right now.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. That's the power of social media, actually.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think it's also there's a certain level of I don't know, is it business acumen for these creators that they're able to navigate that very
Mm.
treacherous waters?
Yep.
Hopefully they're able to do that. That's basically it. And we're seeing it now. Hopefully it continues. Yeah.
Yep.
Answer, this is
Amen.
cute, whatever, but it is doing more harm than good. Yes, sometimes it can do more harm than good.
Yes.
Hopefully more good in the future rather than more harm.
Yep.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Creators now are very smart and they're getting smarter.
Oh
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Is that everything?
Yeah. Next
No,
color,
we have
please.
two more colors.
So many colors. Oh my
Yes.
god, we can do this, guys. Okay, I'm gonna pick my favorite color, blue.
Rainbow.
Ooh,
Rainbow.
rainbow
Oh,
fish.
oh no.
So I guess the topic here is queer baiting, right? Because
Yep.
they treat
Oh.
Oh my
the
God.
queers
Take it
as
away.
rainbow fishes, diba? So how do we feel about queer baiting, and how does it affect representation, or how does it affect targeting of queers as an audience?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Hmm. How much time do we have?
30 minutes.
We'll see how it goes.
Yes, maybe 30
We'll see how
minutes.
it goes.
We still have more topics to go.
Yeah.
I love
I
rainbow
love
fish.
rainbow fish,
Oh,
according to Kokono.
they're cute. Whatever.
For me, I think I don't have a problem with queer baiting at all. Maybe there's really just a thin line between doing it too much or doing it just for the
Hmm.
sake of really um, capturing a specific type of audience. But
Mhm.
playing on the idea of some characters might be queer, I don't have a problem with, because that might be a reality, or that might also be an important part of the story. And as long as it contributes to the story as a whole, I don't have a problem.
Okay. Siguro ano,
And again, there may be people who are queer or who are bordering to but are not open about it, and they are real people, and it's just good that
Yep.
their
yeah.
stories are being told. So we
Hmm.
all love
Yeah.
fishes being shown across the spectrum.
Mhm.
This is a long
Sig-
discussion.
yes, it
Yes,
is.
I
You're right.
know. It is. It is.
You're welcome to join in.
It will be.
Tell us what your thoughts are. We'll try to keep it coherent and you know, yeah, as much as possible. Siguro, I have a thought on queer baiting as well. I think this was because I think the reason why it's here in this topic is because there was a tweet, and there was a discussion about a particular video by Kyriel, wherein they posted it, and of course, it was on the Game Boys page or Game Boys account. And then somebody made a comment that it was queer baiting. So the definition of queer baiting, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but the definition of queer baiting is for a creator to pretend or make it appear that there will be a gay or LGBT character or relationship for two individuals in a series or in a show or whatever. And when it comes to the actual story itself, there is none. So that's the definition of queer baiting that I know. Now, the thing is, when that post was made, it was posted as the characters in the show, and it was posted on the account of the show. So I don't know how that could be termed as queer baiting, wherein we know that these characters are portrayed as a gay couple, and it was done on the official account, which means that it was all part of the universe of Kyrie. So I don't know how that is queer baiting because in the first sense, they are a gay couple. They are portrayed as a gay couple, and it was put on the official account. So I don't know what the problem with that is. But if it were, let's say, a trailer showing that this will be a gay series or that there is going to be something a relationship between these two men, and when that show is aired and there is nothing at all, like seriously nothing, then that would be problematic for me because why did you make it appear or make it seem like there would be something there where in fact there wouldn't be? right? Or if you explicitly say that this is a BL and it turns out not to be a BL. So that would be my problem, right? Because again, it goes into the concept of what do you call that? A little bit of manipulation, emotional manipulation, and it's also very what do you call that? It's a lie. You're basically lying to your audience, right? And that's not something I
Or over
appreciate.
promising maybe.
Right?
Over
Perhaps it's
promising
over
and not
promising.
fulfilling the promise.
Right. Now,
But I have
so
a
that's my
question to
problem.
you guys though. Do you also think that queer baiting also has a positive implication or effect in a way that it kind of insinuates that queer people is like an important chunk of an audience? Or
So
at
yes,
That's
least
one
it gives
perspective.
significance
Yeah.
that
to
was another
queer people as a
dimension.
target audience. Do you think there's a positive side to queer baiting?
Sorry, is there a positive side to queer baiting?
To queer baiting, yes, because that means
Hmm.
that they do recognize queer people as a target audience. That's why they are kind of tiptoeing on the edges. Do you guys think that too?
Really,
I like
I have
that
so many
term,
thoughts on that. I
tiptoeing
have so
on
many
the
thoughts on that.
edges.
I have so many thoughts on that. Can I go? Can I go? Can I go muna?
Go, go,
Go.
go.
Sure.
All right.
Go.
It depends on which perspective you're coming from, right? And what your definition of positive is. Because if I am, let's say, a creator, and I want my show to be noticed and to be maybe watched by a wider audience, then if I queer bait to the end of getting more profit from
The
it
show.
because I get
Oh,
more
okay, okay.
views, then that is positive for me. But it is not positive for the audience because basically you are baiting me with a queer relationship or a queer angle wherein there is none in your product, right? So there is
Right,
that
right.
perspective and that dimension to it. So if I were a business owner, it would be positive for me. But if I were an audience, let's say the end user or the consumer, it wouldn't be positive for me because especially if I'm
You will be blue balled.
exactly what you don't do that. WTF, man?
You're
What is
cock-blocked.
up? Correct. Oh
I
my
do have a
god.
question though.
Yes.
Okay. In relation to this, how do you think, or um, how is it? Okay, let me just phrase it this way. In terms of proper representation, most BLs that okay, let's go for Thai BLs. Most Thai BLs that we've watched, perhaps, we are quite aware that the lead actors are not everyone is from the LGBTQ community. Now, in that case, do you think this is a positive side of queer baiting or not?
Okay. Ha.
Hmm.
I guess that sort of like blurs the lines between queer baiting and fan service. Because fan service would
Mm-hmm.
be giving them the killing that they want, meaning they want to see these characters being all lovey-dovey and chummy and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh my god, that's a
Yeah,
very that's
parang
a very topic.
it's
That's
like
a very loaded question.
It is a
I
very
know.
loaded question.
Pero
Yeah.
but it
It is.
reminds
And
me of the teleseries before, wherein if you know the iconic character of Jean Garcia, wherein the
Mm,
people
mhm,
couldn't separate her from her contrabida character, where literally they were
true.
Madame
throwing tomatoes
Claudia.
at her.
It's
So I
true.
think some people in the maybe assume that and hope are hoping that in the real life these people are lovey-dovey as
Mm,
well.
I
right.
think it also applies to the love teams we have here.
Even in the
Yes.
Yes.
Philippines, right? The straight love
Yes.
teams, correct. So I wouldn't necessarily call that queer baiting. It is more fan service.
Mm-hmm.
But if, for example, let's say the marketing strategy is to make them a couple when in fact they are not, that
Mm-hmm.
would be queer baiting. But fan
Mm-hmm.
service, if we see them being all chummy and such, because I mean, very close men can be very touchy, right? But to actually make people believe that they are in a relationship when they are not is more of queer baiting for me. But therein lies the problem, right? Because on the one hand, you will have the marketing team sort of like pushing this idea that hey, they're together, hey, they're really in love, etc., and so forth. But then on the other hand, on the other side of that, let's say, of that aspect would be the fans themselves. I mean, are you really buying into this, knowing that these people are straight or that they're in a relationship with other people? Like, for example, Tay and Nu, right?
Mhm.
Or who is that? The one who has a girlfriend, right? Or
Louis.
off, huh? Nui,
Yes.
right? Nui has
Louis.
a girlfriend, right? So the fact that Nui has a girlfriend, I mean, that should be off the table already. I mean, they are just bros working together, and they're chummy, they're affectionate to each other. But let's draw the line there. I mean, if he has a girlfriend, he has a girlfriend. Let's leave it at that, right? But the fact that people can't distinguish that or can't draw the line, there's a problem with that, because this is also another problem that we haven't really mentioned yet. But the fact that fans actually are so, let's say, into this fantasy in this ship, that they actually start fighting or they start going after the girlfriends or the significant others of these
Yeah.
stars. It's just
Mhm.
a whole mess, right? So I can't I can't really wrap my head around it at this point, and I can't really give you a concrete
Yeah.
answer. I think there are so many sides to these stories, and we have to be able to, for ourselves, at least for my part, I should be able to draw that line. Wherein, okay, these are individuals, they're doing a job, they're in this ship because they are in a series. I should be able to leave it at that, right? I mean, when they go out of the series, when they're doing their when they're in their daily lives, when they are in their normal skin with the people that they love, with their families, etc., then I should be able to see that as their personal life and as their personal, I mean, it's their reality, right? We should be able to draw that reality for ourselves and for them. So this is something that is problematic these days, and I hope that with more conversations, with more discussions, we'll be able to, alam mo yun? I mean, let's just all be rational human beings.
Although there
But
are some
Yeah.
fans
unfortunately,
that are
not
Yeah,
all of
my
us are
point.
in that state.
Yeah, I think there's a confusion because of the point said by Z. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. I
Mm,
guess people think it's queer baiting because the actors who are taking the role are straight in real life. So there's another question
mm,
between
okay.
should they get gay actors to play gay roles, or is it based on the acting skills
Yeah.
of a person?
Mm.
Okay. So again, that's another dimension. Ano?
Uh,
Okay.
But for
What do you
me,
guys think? What do you guys think?
um, there's this, there are two sides of the coin. Kasi for me, in terms of getting actors to play roles. First is if you want to represent or like genuinely represent the community, you might as well get someone from the community. That's one side of the
Mm,
coin. But
correct.
then the other side of the coin would be don't look at their gender, but look at their capabilities as an actor. So
Period.
Correct.
true.
these are two sides that we might have an opinion on. We should weigh. It's up to us personally if what our opinions are. But for me,
Mhm.
in terms of queer baiting, it's just that I don't know if I am correct, like correct per se. But from what I understand, queer baiting came from the idea where um, it came from the nuances of queer people, like the stereotypes of queer people who look for a masculine male figure, that they
Okay.
adore masculine male figures. I mean, it's rampant in the gay portrayals of 1990s and 1980s, where you have the effeminate gay character who
Right.
is looking for the masculine male character, gay or not. So that's I think that led to the idea of queer baiting is that the use of a masculine male
Mm,
character as the fantasy of a queer guy into drawing the queer community's attention into the series and then raking up money for it. I think that's the context of queer baiting because you bait, like you physically, like literally
correct.
bait
Fishing.
the queer people. Yeah, they fish the queer people into your market. So if that's the context of queer baiting, where you cast a male character or like
Straight
what do
men.
you call this, men,
Straight
straight
person.
acting men. I don't know if they're really straight right now, but that's another story.
Oh, okay, okay,
But yeah,
got it.
straight
Got it.
like straight acting masculine male characters into the story. Um, it's their choice. It's up again, as just like is what I've said earlier. The context of the communication is not offensive if the other person is not offended. But then again, we'll go back to the context that as a production, you have a very wide audience. Some will get offended, some will not. Some will enjoy it, some will not. In
Mhm.
terms of queer baiting, I kind of weigh on this in the perspective that um, what do you call this? I understand it is for marketing. I understand that you productions casting male like masculine male characters into a BL uh, relationship in the series is what will bring them coins. It's just that if they also take into consideration that when they cast, I think I'm jumping into the next context na yung caricatures. That if you're really if your intention is to represent also the other gay characters in the spectrum, whereas the effeminate gay characters you should just do it responsibly. I mean, if
Mhm.
we cast straight acting masculine male characters into a gay role, I mean, there are actually in real life there are straight acting gay people. I mean, it's their truth. I mean, you cannot deny from them the fact that they are gay. If they identify as
Very
gay, then
true.
they are gay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if they
Mhm.
are really masculine, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how they want to present themselves, and they're gay, so that's totally fine with it. I think the problem here lies is um too much what do you call this? Too much representation of that side of the spectrum in a leading role. It's I think
Correct,
that's
correct.
what should balance out the market or the selection of series that
Mhm.
we want to have in our in front of our screens and consume and devour. It's just that in terms of representing effeminate gay characters, we just have to do it responsibly so as to not make it seem queer baiting. Because in terms of this, like together the series, no, um, at the beginning of the series, Tyan was I call this straight. I mean, he was identifying himself as straight, and then
Mhm.
Sarawat,
Mhm.
if I'm not mistaken, identifies himself as gay early on. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it was revealed in a later episode, but early
Right.
on it was clear he was gay. But he was a gay character portrayed by a heterosexual male, but the character is a masculine representing gay character. So I think
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with that. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
I think here's what's something wrong for me when you put Green in the picture, because
Mhm.
Green is an effeminate character who
Mhm.
is what do you call this? Who
Running
goes
after.
after time? Yeah, that's the one. And there's an undertone of problem for me there that you put
Correct.
an effeminate
That
gay
effeminate
character there.
people are not desirable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the same
Yeah.
time,
Mm.
effeminate gay people are what do you call this runs after a guy. I mean, it's not always the case that effeminate gay characters or effeminate gay people in a real life setting is effeminate gay character people are not really into like not all as I can say that would want to go after male and then take so much time of their lives into like pursuing that person. It's not always that story. It's just that in the media right now, it's what is always portrayed for a feminine gay character. So that's I think the problem also
Mhm.
in portraying effeminate gay characters and putting them into a caricature.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
hmm And I'll open the conversation for caricatures because of what do you call this? The episode 13.5 of Game Boys,
Game
no?
Boys.
When we had
Here we
Correct,
go.
Ah,
when we had
correct.
yes.
Achilles. I was going to
Yes.
ask, how do you guys feel about Achilles? I
Ella,
just watched it
Ella,
last night, so it's still fresh in my
Ella.
memory. How do you feel about him?
Oh, Mark, you start.
Mark, you start. You continue.
Mm, ikaw na.
Okay, Z.
Oh,
Eto na,
very
Z. Eto na.
perfect. No, very
And
perfect. The question of Z.
Is that
Um,
Kitsch? Is that the one that Z is pertaining to?
yes,
What is your opinion
yeah,
Yeah.
about Kitsch's
yeah,
It's
portrayal
just
as an
like
really,
effeminate character?
yes.
yeah. Mm.
Um, if I if I may, because if I know the viewers don't know, but if for the sake of them knowing, no, there is a hindi naman siya discussion, but there is a share of opinions in the group chat of
Right.
BBS in terms of this topic
Topic.
Mm.
topic. For me, Fitch's portrayal as an effeminate character is um if we're talking about his portrayal, the actor's portrayal, he did it very well. I mean, if that's the context that we're looking at, now, he did it very well.
Mm.
He gave a good performance. He gave a believable performance. Um,
Correct. I wouldn't have
here's
Is
the
he
thought
problem.
sorry, can I
actually.
ask, is he
I,
Yeah.
straight in real life?
He is?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
yes.
Ah,
I
he
know.
is.
he is?
I
Okay,
don't know.
I'm not sure.
I
Okay.
don't know,
I
I'm
but
not
assume.
sure.
I assume he.
is
I
he
assume
straight
he's
acting
straight.
in real life? Is he?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. He is straight
He's
acting in real
quirky.
life.
He's quirky
Yeah.
naman. He's
Mm.
quirky
Okay.
and fun in real life.
Actually, doesn't
I
matter. I'm
don't know
curious.
what his sexual orientation is. I mean, I haven't heard him declare what his sexual orientation is,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
since he is straight
Same.
acting, I just assumed that he was straight.
hmm.
hmm But
Go on.
going back to what I was saying, if we're talking about the actor's portrayal of the character, he did it very
Mm.
well. But here's the problem for me. Um, he did it in such a way that it's so good that it appeals to the audience, and he fully understood the context of where the audience is coming from. I'll explain it further by um, the context of an effeminate gay character from the perspective of the general audience is someone who is flamboyant, someone who does
Mm.
makeup, someone who who looks at his nails like this, and someone who is a very vain person. That's what the general audience think
Mm.
of an effeminate gay character. The problem for me
Mm.
here is that I was really expecting for Idea First to address this early on. And I mean, in one episode, I was expecting them to address this issue because of um, I think it was Lance who mentioned in the group chat in our discussion that in the first few episodes of Game Boys, they also introduced a stereotype from Gav and Kai. I
Mhm.
mean, Gav was stereotyped as someone who is maloko or like playful to the point that it's annoying, and then
Mm.
Kai is painted as a picture of who is who would rather say no but who would want to say yes. I mean, there are
The typical
stereotypes in there.
cosplay.
Yeah, the typical. Yeah, it's just that for me, Achilles as a character, although he did it very good, it's just that for me, kasi it didn't have the advantage compared to Kai and Gav because how do I put this? Kai and Gav's stereotypes are presented early on in the series. They had so many opportunities weeks after to debunk that stereotype. It's just
Mhm.
that for me, uh, Achilles' character was introduced at the last episode in a special episode of the first season. It is
Mhm.
very crucial. The timing is very crucial. If you want to introduce a character and then paint him or her into a caricature or paint him into her into a stereotype and then not debunk it right after, there is the problem there for me. Because the last episode, I don't know, we don't know yet when will Game Boys 2 air. I mean, I'm sure he will be in Game Boys 2.
Right.
And
Season two.
the director already said that there is more to Achilles. And I have very high hopes and I trust Idea First greatly that they will not
Mhm.
paint Achilles into this stereotype character. It's just that for me, personally, they could have done it in a better way in within that one episode because it is a season ender. I mean, people will talk about it. People will consume that last episode as is, and may or may not consume the next season in a different way. It's just that um, I could have hoped that they debunk somehow the stereotype that they painted early in the episode towards the last part. I think there was a specific scene for Kitsch, and there was a specific scene where he was what do you call this? Terrence was waiting for his call. I mean, Terrence was in another conversation with Wes, and
Mm-hmm.
then Achilles
Mm-hmm.
called him like, "Hey, I'm already available. I know you want to talk, and we talk." And then Terrence was already in another call with Wes, and then Terrence said that I'll just call this person, and then I'll get back to you. And then the next scene would show Achilles waiting for Terrence
The
to call him
call.
back. It's just that for me, if you want to paint Achilles into a strong, independent character, it could have ended like Achilles. Okay, Terrence will not call me now. I might do other stuff, my independent stuff. Like I might
Mm,
work whatever. It's
Mm.
just that
got
for
it.
me, it painted the picture so much into a caricature in the sense that the the representation of effeminate characters as a stereotype was not debunked in the episode as I think it should have because it is a season ender. That's just it for me.
Mm.
I've said so much.
Hey, not a problem. That
Yeah.
was actually
Yeah.
that was what you mentioned rin naman in the
Yeah.
chat, right?
Very insightful. And at least you answered the question I was supposed to ask because I wanted to ask like what made you think that he wasn't debunked. So you answered that question as well.
Mm,
Kasi for me,
right, right,
if I'd add more to that, it's like I watched his interviews, and he's a brilliant actor in a way. Because he really studied Paolo Ballesteros, Kirai, all
He
that.
was
He
the
name
peg.
drop people. He used the peg. I
Mm,
think his major peg was Paolo Ballesteros. He uses that because he loved the makeup thing. He loved to explore that character. And when you get a character who plays an FM role, at least when you do interviews, he sounded as if he's really breathing, portraying an ally. So,
mm,
yun lang yung for me. I mean, if you're gonna do that, at least when you go into interviews, you're learned about the topics, the issues we're fighting for.
Yes.
Kasi if you're
right.
not, you're gonna be hanged to the walls. My God, burned on the stakes.
Correct.
Ano ba yun? Ano ka ng patiwarik? Ano ba tawag doon?
Oo.
Ibibigay
You're
ka ng
gonna,
patiwarik.
Nako, what the wala.
uh,
You'll be hung by your ankles. For me
you'll be,
naman, yeah, go ahead.
uh, parang you'll be read in the library like, so hell, good luck sa'yo afterwards.
Right. So, I'll repeat rin na lang yung sinabi ko sa chat.
Uh,
Ako naman, I found, just like Mark, I found the portrayal very, for me,
Effective.
effective naman. Yes, absolutely. Because I've come across people who are like that, and
mhm.
I know people in my life who've been in the BPO industry. Na ganun talaga sila. So parang same energy, same look,
Yeah.
same gestures, same facial expression, same verbal expressions even. So I thought that it was a very accurate representation. And I also thought that what was good that happened in that episode was there was a point in time wherein Terrence was actually sort of like vacillating between the two. There was sort of like a moment like, okay, so who do I call? Who do I answer? Who do I talk to? Right? And there was even a conversation with Achilles wherein Terrence said, hey, makeup or not, you're beautiful inside and out. Anybody would be lucky to have you, something like that, somewhere
Mhm.
along those lines, right? Which means that Terrence, in fact, did acknowledge and felt something for Achilles before, di ba? So that's what I liked about that episode. It basically sort of gave Achilles, or painted a picture of Achilles in the sense that you are desirable, whether you wear makeup or not, whether you're effeminate or not, whether you're vain or not, etc. You are still worthy of being loved. Maybe it's just not me, di ba? Parang ganun eh. Parang maybe it's not
Mhm.
just Terrence, but it can be
Maybe
someone else.
maybe it's just a timing
Yeah.
that's not
Maybe.
right.
Yeah, that's the
No, actually,
timing.
he said that, right? Actually, he said
Yep,
that.
yep.
Hindi
Mhm.
tayo, baka hindi tayo nagkatugma or something. It
Oo,
wasn't right,
sabi niya nga.
Mhm.
whatever. So, absolutely. So, he wasn't brushing Achilles off. It's just that perhaps he has a different preference, right? Or maybe somebody weighing everything together, maybe somebody weighed more during that time rather than Achilles. And I was actually, and the reason why I said it was effective was because um, during that part when he was waiting for the call, I was actually rooting for Achilles because I wanted I
True.
wanted him to get that
True.
I wanted him to get that call. Like you have
True.
somebody
And
called him,
especially
right?
when Terrence was about to choose, you do want him to choose Achilles in that precipice.
Same. Same.
Especially
Yes.
right, and
Agree.
especially because there was even a flashback, and this is what I like about Game Boys as well, though. But they're able to provide a different dimension to a person just by an IG story or a picture or whatever, right? There was a scene where Achilles was
The
holding
poster.
the poster 100 reasons why I love you or something like that, and he said,
Oh.
do you remember this, etc. So it gave me an idea as well that Achilles is somebody who loves and loves with his whole heart. And that is something that we've also known or seen in this stereotype that effeminate people are. When they give their all. Like, no holds
Yeah.
barred. Parang ano, warakin mo na ako, parang sakpan mo na ako. Basta mamahalin kita, I will love you, right? No matter what you do to me, I will love you, right? So that's why I was really gunning for him and was hoping that in the
Same.
end he would get that call. Now I know that it was a very short episode. Hopefully, we'll see some development in the upcoming episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also one of the things that became a topic of conversation in the Twitter, and the people in the audience know that because there was a comment wherein why are we allowing straight people or straight acting people to play gay roles? Wherein there are a lot of people in the gay community who should be doing those roles. And I would like to echo here what Mark said. Now, we look at, for example, if you are doing an audition and then two people come along, one is straight and one is gay. What if the straight person does a better reading? What if the straight person does a better performance? What if the straight person actually has more talent? Would you pass over that person because there is someone here from the community? No, because you would go for the person with more talent, right? So
Yeah.
for me, that's where it becomes problematic when people say that we are entitled to these roles because we are that character. No, what boils
And
down to should be who can do the role better, right?
Agree.
It shouldn't be a question of okay, so in that sense, if we are going to tell these stories and then we're just going to use gender, okay, then whoever walks in the door who is gay, let them play the gay role, no matter how bad they are in the performance, right? So that's the problem with me, because it shouldn't be about entitlement based on gender. It should be about performance and talent. So that should be the litmus test. That should be the benchmark, right? So I guess in terms of proper representation, we should be telling the stories, but then who will fit these roles best or who will tell these stories best, then we should take a look at that. We should consider that. I mean, definitely open it to the entire community, but no matter what their gender is, if they are the best to play that role and to tell that story, pick them, regardless of whatever gender, size, shape, whatever. No? So there. I mean, I guess that's my 2 cents in that. Ayun. So yun, to answer Z's
Nolan said,
question, I agree with what you said. Yes, Nolan.
Nolan said at that time it was Ter wanted Gavin. Sorry, ah,
Achilles.
and Achilles.
Achilles.
Achilles
Actually,
wanted Terrence. Okay, okay. And it's not because Gav was more masculine. It was just that Gav was Terrence's sexual awakening. If
Yes, I
Terrence
remember.
knew who he was at the time,
yeah.
that he and Achilles was close, maybe it would have been so different for Achilles and Terrence. So
Right.
yeah, it
Okay,
really
so
maybe was just a timing.
and let's unpack that a little bit more, right? Remember Terrence, he said na Gav can be very charming because he
yeah.
never actually knew that he would fall for a guy until Gav came along. So when probably it was him and Achilles was showing his intentions, he was showering him with whatever, with love, etc. He was still not, I guess, accepting of himself, and that's why he wasn't able to reciprocate the love that Achilles was giving. Or maybe the love that Achilles was giving was not the love that he was looking for, or was not the love that would push him to actually reveal himself or to step out of the closet. But apparently, Gav's kind of love was the kind of love that he wanted or that he needed. So there, that's the thing, right? I mean, in my head, that's how it played out.
I
Hmm. Definitely, cast the case, right? Right? Absolutely. So open
yes.
it up, have them audition, call them, right? Have them come over, do the reading, etc., and so forth. But at the end of the day, who deserves it or who plays it best? They or not. I would
Yeah.
say, in my opinion, let them do it.
And
Yeah,
I'd
it also
also like
goes
to. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, for me it also goes with the chemistry of the individuals you're gonna be working with. Because let's say
Hmm.
Kitch would blend together with Ter and Wes and Gav and in the future with Guy. So
Hmm.
why not get that person? Because I know there's parts when you get read with other people as well. So if your chemistry won't work together, let's say you have two people, a gay one and a straight one, and the chemistry of the straight one plays well with the chemistry with Gav and Kai or and Ter and West, who would you pick?
Yeah. Right, right, right. So there's a lot of considerations, no?
Yeah. Parang
And
it's
we can't.
also a balance of what Mark was saying a while ago. Do you go with acting skills? Would you go representation? Would you go with marketability, profit?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of considerations to think about.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we can't really
Although,
box the situation in, no?
yeah,
Yeah.
there's this one thing that is unfortunately kind of rampant in the, at least in the Philippine media. No?
Mm-mm.
I understand that Mike also mentioned earlier about audition, opening the auditions for across all people in all parts of the
Mm.
spectrum. But there are instances where um, roles are made for specific artists and
Right.
tapping them to,
Yep.
that's, I think that's
Directly.
another story. It's just that
Yes.
that's what's sad in this industry. I think that's just one rotten part of the industry, that you
Yeah.
don't open the role to a lot of artists, but make that role fit a specific person you want to tap for the project.
Right.
It's a different discussion. It's just
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
I hope the Philippine media, or media in general, whereas Thai, Indonesia, whatever, Malay, just let's give equal opportunity to everyone, regardless of gender, race, or whatsoever. It's
That's
just
basically it.
that
That's it.
um yeah, it's because I think kasi it's a different story when you, when sorry, it popped in my mind. It's a different story when you put out when you do a scarjo of a movie. It's a different kasi it's different when you're doing a racial movie. For example, Mulan, and cast all white people
Ooh.
play
Yeah.
Mulan. It's a different it's a
Last
Whitewashing.
different
Avatar.
it's a
Whitewashing.
different yeah, it's a different
The
story,
last
but for
Avatar
this
lang.
Yes.
context,
Yes.
yeah,
But that's
that's for
also
this
that also
context.
goes to the
Yeah.
heart of proper representation, right? Like for
Yeah.
example,
Yes.
well, let's go fantasy or let's go anime. Dragon Ball Z. Can we not get an Asian character to play Goku? Like seriously, Shodi. I mean, Yoshi Tadaraso. Oh my God, he could be. Like. But anyways, yeah, that's another story.
Yeah,
That's
it's
another
another
story.
So
story.
yeah.
Yeah, but definitely equal opportunity and proper representation. Very, very important.
Yeah, because I think some of them are scared of being typecast. Like, let's say if you play a gay role, you'll be typecasted for a gay role, even if you're
That's
straight,
another
or the other way
thing.
around. Parang
That's
ganun.
another
Yeah.
thing. Right.
That's what's
F4,
happening to
F4, F4.
Christian Bob.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, I mean, we won't be
See?
able to answer it right now, guys. I mean, there's a lot of consideration, and basically, for
Yeah.
me, personally speaking, I'm not in the industry, so I don't know the the process. I don't know what they go through, and I think June Robles Lana also mentioned it in one of his tweets that you don't know
Yeah.
what our casting process is, right? So don't
Yeah.
don't basically you have to understand our
Preempt.
process. We have our own process, and parang I trust that they went through the process. So I guess
Mhm.
we are speaking from our own perspectives, so it might be different from yours. Please understand that we are coming from our own backgrounds and our own opinions. So yeah, but that's what
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
is there anyone else who want to weigh on this?
Anyone
Ipati, I
else?
think.
Mm-mm.
I'm good so far.
You're good.
Last
Okay.
caller
Okay.
na ba tayo?
I
Rest
guess. Oh my
are-
God, guys. Malapit na tayo matapos. Hang on na lang.
Yes.
Topic
Yes.
one, right? I think
Dilaw.
I guess this will be a quick one, right? I guess this will be a
I
quick
hope
one.
so. Ah, yes.
Oh,
Oh.
try or pancit.
I love the ano. I love the comparison.
Both
I
are
love the
good. Both are
analogy.
Yes.
yummy.
Yeah. And
It's
they're
Yeah,
difficult
all
to
exactly.
choose. Each has its own pros and cons. So
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
Is
right.
this pancit
Whenever
bihon, habhab, or
I can't really compare right now kasi
It's basically, do we choose Thai
Pinoy
or do we choose Pinoy? That's basically what it is. And for those in the audience, you can also pick your choices. Kapono says,
Como
Ooh.
says,
the nerve of
Nerve.
you making us. Well,
well, if we're
you can
making them choose,
qualify.
how about you guys? Might as
Sit
well.
can
Oh, pancit
Universal Pancit
canton.
Canton.
Okay, pancit canton. And then
Actually,
the one
universal, no?
okay, yeah. I mean, nothing wrong. We all have our
Hmm.
tastes and choices.
Yeah.
Who was ano?
Pans
Who was talking?
ako.
can it be
Parang
half
pancit.
pad thai? Go.
You go first. Ladies first.
Okay, sorry.
Alright. Can it be half pad thai and half pancit canton?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Because there are good points for for Thai BLs and for Pinoy BLs per se. And you can't just pick one because
Mm.
you really like both eh. It's just a
Mm.
matter of it's so hard to pick. It's so hard to
Yeah.
pick. Can you have both? Like just
Half seas.
yeah. Half pad thai, half pancit canton, however that
Oh
is
no,
the
half
preference.
seas. I mean, you
Total
can make your own
pinaproduct.
plate, right? I
Oh,
mean, it's 2020, so
pancit pad thai
it's
na
just a
lang.
matter of it's just a matter of whether the pancit served to you is spoiled or good. It's just a matter of the pad thai served to you
It's
has
true.
has all these ingredients or not. It's chicken
right,
or shrimp. It's just that
Too
right,
whatever your
spicy.
preference is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Siguro when it comes to
Because you
story,
can't
I will
eat
choose
pancit canton
Pinoy
every day.
BLs.
That's true. That's true.
Parang, especially choose Pinoy BLs because we have command of the language as well. So we can relate to the social nuances, to the
Yeah.
jokes, to the inside jokes. So we grasp that. But I do love some stories also
Mhm.
with the pad thai side, especially He Comes to Me. Because sometimes they're very creative when it
Yes,
comes to
oh my
that.
God,
Yeah, that's
right.
true. That's true.
And universal ata yung pancit canton eh. So you see that when Man and Boss was eating. You see that also in Game Boys. You see that in Hello Stranger.
Mama, okay.
Mama, okay.
Oo, mama, okay.
Instant noodles.
You open
I
just
have
one
a
pack,
question though.
people will share it. Yes, Mark.
What do you think? What is your opinion on pad thai cooked the pancit way, aka
Oh,
Tagalay's Thai series?
Oh.
Oh.
I think that's going to be a long discussion.
you guys
I
answer
have a
first.
different opinion on this.
Oh no! Wow, thank you.
Ah.
Stories flow better and seem more relatable on the Pinoy side.
Correct. I agree. Probably when it comes to stories, I would choose Pinoy BLs. But when it comes to execution and creativity, when it comes to concepts, then maybe Thai BL is the way to go for me. Yeah. So parang
Mm.
both have their edges naman. And
Yes.
also the
Right.
actors too.
Yes. Siguro to answer Mark's
I think
question,
Uh-huh.
because I haven't seen an entire series of a Thai BL in a Tagalog format, but I have seen clips and also what do you call this trailers. So it hits a little bit differently, especially if you've seen the Thai version. It hits a little bit differently. What is sometimes an issue for me is when the voice of the voice talent is a little bit
do not match
too
the character.
Deep.
correct. It doesn't match
I
the character. It
know.
doesn't match the image in my head or the image on the screen, or it's too breathy. Like I've told you guys before, right? Like if, for example, when they do voice talents for anime, and it's like, "Mga anak, kamusta naman tayo dyan?" I mean, it gets a little bit cringy for me. So um, I would have to say that it depends on the voice talent and the execution, right? Because definitely when it's done in Tagalog, it gives it a different flavor. So you enjoy it differently. But
Yeah.
to answer the question on the screen, um, it was purely pad thai for me, right? Because of course we all have our favorites, and it was a let's say it, di ba? Parang sila yung grandfather. Parang sila yung pioneers in the BL, right? So it was pad thai for me, but then when the Pinoy BL started coming out, now it's pancit canton. And di ba? So and like Mark said, you can't eat pancit canton every day. So the same is true. You can't eat pad thai every day. And just to echo what Lan said, there is it hits differently when it's in Tagalog because it is your language. I mean, it makes more sense in your head. And this was something that we talked about as well, where in terms of the language and the nuances in the Thai language, there might be some mistranslations. So we're not getting the full concept or the full meaning of the words that are being said. So that's why sometimes I sort of like scratch my head. Is that really what they meant? Is it, or is it, does it mean differently? So there is no confusion when it comes to the Pinoy BLs. And again, in terms of the um, not just the flow, not just the stories, but in terms of, let's say, everything that we talked about earlier, like the consent, the representation, the strong female characters. The Pinoy BLs are really hitting the right spots and all of the items on my list. So that's why for now, it's at this moment, it's really Pancit Canton for me.
Yeah. And to
Yes.
add on what Mark was saying a while ago, I think we could get a glimpse of that as well, how they would all feel if we start reading the subtitles in the Pinoy BLs. Especially, what the goodest example I think was how they subtitled Epal, Potassium, what else?
Right. They lose the impact of the
Yes, they lose
joke,
the
of the
Yeah.
insult, for example. Yeah, absolutely.
So they have to be careful with that, especially like when I was asking them before with He's Coming to Me, will they get the nuances and the subtitles of him becoming a person from 10 years ago in the Tagalog
Mhm.
dub?
True.
It's
And
How about
it's
you?
different
sometimes,
because it's cultural.
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, guys, you're all invited. Nico.
Yay.
Nico.
So just in case, the link will be available tomorrow.
Yay!
Yeah. Thanks, Nolan.
Thanks,
Ako
Nolan. I
pala,
don't sing though.
I haven't,
Ako
I
din.
haven't chosen between, pad thai and pancit. But for me, well, I am a sucker for first impressions. I mean, the one that hooked me into this is pad thai. I mean, I mean, aren't we all? I mean, yeah, because they are the pioneers of the BL genre. But um, I'm really looking forward to when the situation becomes more favorable, especially if we Filipinos have already produced this much content, given that we have the shittiest, longest lockdown ever. And I can't wait to see what lies ahead for the Filipino creatives when the
Correct.
situation gets better for us. And I
Or
think
we're when given the
given
freedom
the
to.
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm really looking forward to what the pancit has to offer. However, there are some dishes of pancit that I already enjoyed, and there are already some dishes of pad thai I enjoyed and not enjoyed. So it's just a matter of preference for me. I'm just looking forward to what more pancit dishes are there in the future.
Right.
I'll go next. Me, kasi I can't really compare right now because I've only consumed pad thai so far. I'm still starting to explore the different types of pancit. But if Game Boy was the pancit canton, it's the best noodles I've tasted so far. And also, uh, I think right now kasi Thai BLs really have the advantage over Pinoy BLs because right now our BLs are just being released through YouTube online, and then there's lack of support from mainstream media still for me. So I hope that someday we get to consume uh, more types of pancit and endorse it to nationwide. Endorse it nationwide.
Worldwide.
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 And I think kaya we're more open to YouTube kasi we're giving like the actors viewership. Unlike yung sabi nga ni Shaki in one of her in his yung interviews na some Thai BLs would block them. So
Right.
yun.
Yeah.
It's a strike for copyright.
Yeah.
So
And we're more
Nolan
open.
says,
We're more open with the new ecosystem na yun.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Because they know that reactors are part of the ecosystem of the BL world, right?
Yeah.
You
It's free marketing.
Yep.
absolutely.
Oh yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why would you hate on it? It's free
It's very
marketing.
true.
Okay.
So Pono says, I'm biased because I was introduced to BL with Pancit. Game Boys. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh.
interesting.
Interesting.
Oh.
So stories flow, relatable, whereas Pad Thai fantasize these boys, and the fandom is more romantic to people in real life. Stories are slow and packed. Too much for
Yeah.
you, no? Yeah.
Mhm.
Nolan also said, and this is a very good point. He said Pinoy BL sells stories for the community, whereas Thai are basically stories for women who
That's true.
fantasize. And I think
That's true.
there is
And
truth
also to
in
gays who
that.
fantasize.
Well, yes. Well, yeah. Mm-mm. But he thinks that Thai will improve on their storytelling and Oxygen, the new series, looks promising. Yes, I'm
Mhm.
sure. I'm sure that it will evolve as well. Siyempre.
And we're just happy that there are options and there are more people embracing BLs,
Buffet.
regardless of the
Yeah.
nationality, and that there's more
Welcome.
people shedding light into this kind of topic, and that there's also
Yeah.
Yeah.
representation for these kinds of love because these types of love exist. So yep, I'm just happy.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
it's unfair to choose
Absolutely.
as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And
So
Yeah.
I'm
also,
all for
Yeah.
variety and options.
And
Yes.
also, BL paved the way in people recognizing the LGBTQ community more.
Yeah.
True.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
And
I
parang
just
Shaki
hope in
should.
the future. Sorry. I
Yeah, go
just hope
ahead,
in
you
the
first.
future we don't just have pad thai and pancit, and maybe in the future we could also have spaghetti, Italian
Oh,
spaghetti,
yes.
nice.
Oh
carbonara,
my
and
God.
Yes.
Right.
all the
And
other
isn't there
stuff.
also
Ramen.
a Korean
Ramen.
BL?
Oh, they
Ramen,
have
udon,
They
keep
have a
them
there's
Korean
coming.
BL.
ramen BL. There's ramen
There
Yeah.
BL.
is, but more
Ocean
Can
ramen.
Yun.
yeah, yeah.
More
Correct,
udon.
but the ones in China were banned. It's so sad.
Oo nga.
Kaya Taiwan's
Only
better. Taiwan's
noodles
good
naman.
naman.
Correct, correct.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spaghetti.
We
Yeah.
love that. We love
I love
that.
how we referenced BLs as noodle dish.
Noodles.
I know. I
Mas
think that's
magama
what
ako
it
ng pansit
is.
molo.
Right?
Ay,
Pansit
Yeah.
Molo.
nakahiligay nun yung buong BL.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And also, I hope we also have representation for all sizes. We should also have a BL for lasagna, penne. Like, come on, short people and plus size people deserves representation as well.
um,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes, I
Pero,
agree.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
think what I learned sa ibang meets na what I like about with the surge or the wave of the BLs right now is they're painting a new story for the community because if you
Yes,
go
true.
back to what the stories were told before, usually you'd see the struggles, you'd see the hardship. Parang when I was in that phase, honestly, parang I felt
Mm,
like, ito ba yung pagdadaanan ko kapag when I come out? So
right.
Yeah.
when I started watching BL, oh, so there's a chance for love pala. I mean, there's this reality that we can fall in love. It's not just the dark side, but there's this beautiful rainbow coming in.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Ganon.
Diba? And I guess the more stories we tell and the more stories we
Mhm.
see, the more normal it becomes. I mean, it's not just maybe in the future it's not
Yes.
just gonna be BL, but it's just gonna be HL, human love or love. It's
Yep.
just a,
Yes.
it's
Love.
just a love story, right? So when we say, oh, it's a rom com, then it can be a gay story, it can be a lesbian story, it can be a trans story. It's a rom com because it's just romantic comedy. Period. Right? No more distinction
Yeah.
between all those things. So hopefully we get to that point, right? And hopefully it
Yeah.
happens in this
Yeah.
lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for
Yes.
now,
we're super duper
For now, let's
happy and thankful
penetrate the
to
media.
yes, and we're thankful to everyone who also joined us tonight.
Thank
Who
you,
shared the love
guys.
for BLs with us. We super duper appreciate that chat with each and every one of you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you, Nolan,
Thank
Z,
you.
Bono, and for
Yeah.
everyone that joined us. I think Jericho was here earlier, and Shaki. So bad. Oh my god. And Pietro was here, right? And
Yep.
who else? Oh my god, I hope I'm
Yeah.
not missing anyone.
Yeah, Pietro, happy advance. Advance.
Yes,
Yay!
rapid advance. Yes.
Love
So,
you.
like, is that it, guys?
Ayun.
Does that end our session tonight?
Yes, so follow us on Brouhaha BL Squad on Instagram and Facebook.
Appreciate everyone.
Yay!
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
us. And
Thank
everyone,
you.
we hope
and
to see
happy
you in the
weekend.
next one. Happy
Herbal
weekend.
lunch
Bye
daw.
bye.
Herbal lunch daw.
Bye!
Bye.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.